Her kingdom fell to the Wolf King, until fate claimed them both. A human queen stands alone in a shattered throne room, her crown barely cold when the most feared Alpha King in the realm storms through her gates. He conquered her lands. She was supposed to kneel. Instead, an impossible mate bond ignites between predator and prey, human and wolf, enemy and enemy. He declares her his war prize, his wife, under laws older than mercy. She accepts, not for love, but to save her people, turning vows into weapons and marriage into a battlefield. But the pack despises her. Rival alphas smell weakness, ancient laws awaken, and rebellion begins. As assassins close in, thrones are challenged, and a secret pregnancy threatens to shatter the natural order, one question becomes deadly. When a brutal alpha must choose between power and his mate, and a human queen carries a child that could unite or destroy two worlds, will their bond end the war, or ignite one that consumes them all? The throne room of Aurelia blazed with afternoon light through shattered stained glass. Smoke curled through the space, carrying the scent of burning wood and blood. Battle sounds had faded to distant screams and heavy footfalls of wolf warriors securing corridors. Queen Alara stood before her father's throne, hers for barely 6 months. She refused to sit or flee through secret passages. If her kingdom fell, she'd face its conqueror with dignity. The oak doors splintered inward. Alaric Blackfang entered first. The Wolf King, whose armies had swept 3 human kingdoms in 2 years, wore black armor splattered with blood. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, partially obscuring a face of brutality and fierce intelligence. Golden wolf eyes scanned the room with predatory precision. His pack flooded behind, massive warriors synchronized and lethal. Beta Kale, silver-streaked hair marking him a veteran, took position at his right. Alara gripped her skirts to stop their trembling. 24, trained in statecraft, not warfare, completely alone. But power wasn't always about strength. Sometimes it was perception. Queen Alara of Aurelia, Alaric's voice rolled like thunder. Your army surrendered. Your generals fled. Yield your kingdom, and I'll spare your people. She met his gaze directly. A calculated risk. You've already taken my kingdom. Why pretend I have a choice? Surprise flickered in those golden eyes. He climbed the dais toward her throne. Alara held her ground. 3 steps away, it hit them. The mate bond slammed into Alara like physical force. Her breath caught, heart stuttered, every nerve screaming with awareness of him. Not fear, something far more dangerous. Recognition, belonging, an impossible pull that made her want to step closer even as her mind recoiled. Alaric froze. His nostrils flared, a low sound emerging. Half growl, half shock. His wolves tensed, sensing their alpha's distress. No, he whispered. Then louder, voice rough. Impossible. Humans didn't have mates. That was wolf magic. This couldn't be real. But the pull was undeniable. Alaric's hand gripped her wrist. Contact sent electricity racing up her arm. His pupils dilated, the wolf rising in his eyes. You feel it? He said. Alara jerked back. I feel nothing but contempt for the man who destroyed my kingdom. A lie. They both knew it. Kyle approached carefully. My king? Alaric's jaw clenched. When he spoke again, his voice carried absolute authority. I claim this kingdom and its queen. We marry under wolf law within 3 days. She will be my war prize and mate. The throne room erupted. His wolves snarled in shock. A human mate was abomination, weakness, disgrace. Alara's strategic mind clicked into gear. A war marriage gave her leverage, position, a chance to protect her people. "I accept," she said clearly, "on condition you swear before your pack to honor traditional war marriage protections. My people won't be slaughtered or enslaved." Alaric's eyes narrowed. She was maneuvering, but he'd backed himself into this corner. "Agreed," he growled. "Anyone who harms a human citizen without cause answers to me personally." Deafening silence followed. That night, moved to luxurious but clearly prison chambers, Alara felt phantom rage and confusion through the forming bond. The wedding took place in the great cathedral. Alara wore her mother's gown, white silk with silver embroidery, pearls at her throat. Her ladies wept, convinced they prepared her for execution. The pews held uneasy conquered humans and conquering wolves. Her people looked terrified. His wolves looked disgusted. Alaric waited in formal black, face unreadable. The mate bond hummed, growing stronger with proximity. Alara felt his emotions, controlled fury, confusion, unwanted hunger mirroring her own. The ceremony was brutal hybrid. A trembling human priest performed traditional rites. Then Alaric's pack elder conducted the wolf bonding ritual, blood and moonlight that made humans flinch. When it came time for vows, Alara did something unprecedented. "I, Alara of Aurelia, enter this union under war marriage terms as recognized by wolf law." Her voice rang clear. "I invoke traditional protections. My people shall not be harmed without trial. My properties remain under my stewardship. My counsel heard in matters affecting human citizens." Gasps rippled through the crowd. She'd turned their vows into legal contract, invoking obscure laws most wolves had forgotten. The pack elder looked to Alaric. He stood frozen, caught between rage at manipulation and grudging respect. "Granted," he said through clenched teeth. "Let it be witnessed." When they sealed with a kiss, the bond flared intensely. Alaric's hand at her waist kept her upright. His lips were firm, possessive, the kiss going on too long, acclaiming before witnesses. The feast was disaster of barely concealed hostility. Wolfpack members openly questioned the match. "A human cannot understand pack bonds," declared Rena, a scarred female wolf. "She weakens our king. She cannot shift, fight, or bear proper wolf cubs," added another. Alara endured with cold dignity, but Alaric said nothing in her defense, drinking heavily, his silence louder than words. When Rena suggested Alaric should take a proper wolf mate as well, Alara set down her glass. "Excuse me, I've lost my appetite." She walked from the hall, head high, feeling Alaric's anger surge through the bond, but whether at her departure or his pack's behavior, she couldn't tell. That night, separate chambers had been ordered, a deliberate insult, rejection of the bond. Beautiful but isolated rooms far from his own. Alara dismissed her ladies and locked the door. Only then did she lean against it, breathing hard. The bond ached with separation. Her body felt feverish, restless. She could feel his emotions, rage, confusion, unwanted desire. She'd married a monster to save her people. Now she was bound in ways she couldn't escape. In his chambers, Alaric paced like a caged wolf. Every instinct screamed to go to her, claim his mate, complete the bond. But humans weren't supposed to be mates. This violated every natural law. Yet he could feel her fear, her determination, the strength that had faced him down. He'd conquered kingdoms. He would conquer this impossible bond too. Alara woke to wolf guards outside her door. Surveillance, not protection. Prisoner in her own palace. She dressed in deep blue, royal authority and human tradition, meaningless to wolves. If they saw her as powerless, she'd use that blindness. She requested audience with the pack's record keeper, who clearly considered it beneath him. "I wish to study wolf law," Alara said, "particularly war marriages, treaty obligations, citizen rights." "Why would a human care?" "Because I'm now subject to it. Ignorance is the greatest weakness in negotiation." She spent hours in archives, cataloging clauses, precedents. Wolf law was brutal but structured. Rules, protections, loopholes. By afternoon, she'd drafted her first petition, requesting human prisoners receive trials before execution, seized properties held in trust, a joint council for grievances. Alaric received it during War Council. Kale read it with disdain. "The human queen requests—" "She's not requesting," Alaric interrupted. "She's invoking legal precedents. Correctly." Despite himself, admiration flickered. "She's manipulating wolf law to protect her species," Rena snarled. "She's using the system as designed." Alaric cut her off. "Her requests are legitimate under war marriage law. Grant them." "My king—" "I said grant them." That evening, Alaric found himself drawn to the library. The bond pulled him there. Alara sat surrounded by law books, dark hair falling from pins, candlelight casting gold across her face. She looked up as he entered, the bond flaring painfully. "Researching more manipulation?" he asked coldly. "Learning the rules of the game I'm forced to play." She set down her quill. "You granted my petitions. I'm surprised." "They were legal. I honor wolf law, even when invoked by a human." He moved closer, drawn despite himself. "Where did you learn such tactics?" "My father educated me to rule, understanding how to negotiate from weakness." Her eyes met his. "Humans can't fight wolves with strength, so I'll fight with strategy." Something tightened in Alaric's chest. She wasn't cowering. She was a queen adapting to survive. "Your people think I'm your weakness," he said quietly. "Your people think I'm your shame," she countered. The truth hung between them. Then Alaric pulled out a chair and sat. "Why did you conquer us?" Alara asked. His jaw ticked. "My kingdom was starving. 2 harvests failed. Wolf territories have poor farmland. We've always relied on hunting. Growing populations, shrinking forests." He stopped, surprised he was explaining. "So you took ours," Alara finished. "I chose my people's survival over your people's freedom." "A king's burden," she said softly. "Choosing which evil is necessary." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. 2 rulers understanding impossible decisions. The bond thrummed with mutual understanding. Alaric stood abruptly. "This changes nothing." "Of course not," Alara agreed, but something had shifted. As he walked away, she felt his conflict through the bond, torn between what he'd been taught and what he was beginning to feel. Across the palace, separated by walls but connected by an invisible thread, both stood at windows staring at the moon. He'd conquered her kingdom, but she was conquering something more dangerous, his certainty. 3 weeks after their wedding, Alara collapsed during council. One moment presenting trade proposals, the next hitting marble floor. Through the haze, she felt Alaric's panic slam through the bond. She woke in the infirmary. An ancient wolf healer stood over her. "Bond sickness," the healer said without preamble. "I warned this would happen." "What are you talking about?" "Mate bonds must be completed, consummated, and accepted. When wolves deny mates, their bodies fail. Usually affects only our kind, but you—" Sharp interest. "You're more connected than any human should be." Alaric appeared, face drawn. Through the bond, Alara felt his exhaustion. He was suffering too. "How long?" he asked. "Without consummation? A moon cycle, perhaps 2. Then organ failure. For both." The healer left them alone. "This is intolerable," Alara said. "Being forced through biological blackmail." Agreed. Alaric remained by the door. "But the alternative is death." "Then we find another way?" "There isn't. I've researched. A rejected mate bond is fatal." Alara's mind raced. "Then we negotiate terms." Alaric's laugh was bitter. "Terms? For betting my own wife?" "Yes." She met his gaze. "I'll consummate the bond. Fully. Willingly. On one condition." "Of course there's a condition." "Grant my people full citizenship rights. Not war marriage protections, but actual equality under wolf law. Property rights, representation." "No. You're asking me to restructure pack society." "I'm asking you to recognize this conquest fails if you rule through fear alone." Alara stood, dizzy. "You need my people's cooperation. Their knowledge of lands, farming techniques, trade routes. Give them reason to work with you, not against you." "You're using the bond as weapon," Alaric said, weary admiration in his tone. "I'm using the only leverage I have." She stepped toward him. "You'll rule whether I agree or not. I'm trying to make that rule survivable." The bond pulsed between them, stronger with proximity. Alaric felt her determination, fear, strength. "Half measures," he said finally. "Citizenship for families who pledge loyalty and undergo integration. Trade protections, joint council representation. Full equality takes time. In writing, witnessed by pack council." "Naturally. You trust nothing I say." "You're a conqueror. I'd be a fool to trust words alone." Alaric moved closer, drawn by the bond. "If I agree, you'll stop fighting this?" Her heart raced as he approached, the pull overwhelming. "I'll accept the bond. Accept you. But no, I'll never be submissive. I'll fight you on policy, challenge decisions, protect my people with every tool I have." Something blazed in his eyes. "I wouldn't want a mate who didn't." The confession surprised them both. "We have an agreement?" Alara asked. Instead of answering, Alaric closed the distance. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. "We have an agreement." Then, "I need to know you choose this, not because forced." "I choose it," Alara interrupted. "Not you, not this marriage. But I choose to live, to protect my people. And if that means accepting this bond," her fingers threaded through his hair, "then I accept." The kiss was nothing like their wedding ceremony. This was hunger and fire, and weeks of denied attraction unleashed. Alaric's control shattered, pulling her against him with possessive growl. The mate bond exploded between them. When he lifted her, Alara wrapped her legs around his waist. They didn't make it to a bed. The healer's examination table became their claiming ground. The consummation was fierce, desperate, and when complete, the bond snapped into place with force that left them gasping. Alara felt it, the full connection. She could sense his emotions clearly now. His satisfaction, his confusion at tenderness, his awe at what they'd shared. And beneath it all, carefully hidden, the beginning of something that terrified him more than any battle. As they lay tangled together, Alaric's hand found hers. "This changes things," he said quietly. "Everything," Alara agreed. Through the bond, she felt his walls beginning to crack. The war between them was far from over. but now they were bound in ways neither understood, and that terrified them both. The morning after, Alara woke to empty bed and transformed world. The mate bond was fully active now, constant hum letting her feel Alaric's presence floors away. Currently in training yards, she sensed his focus, exertion, confusion he was trying to burn away. She dressed in crimson and gold, wolf colors, a calculated statement. When she entered the council chamber, conversation died. Kyle stood. "This is War Council. Matters of strategy aren't appropriate for the Queen?" Alara finished coolly. "I believe my husband and I had an agreement. Joint council." Alaric entered behind her, presence dominating. "She stays. Her counsel will be heard." His hand found the small of her back, possessive message to his pack. The council was brutal. For every suggestion, Rena or another wolf countered with contempt. But Alara had learned pack dynamics through the bond. She could feel their emotions, fear masked as aggression, uncertainty as tradition. "The grain stores you seized from eastern provinces," she said, spreading maps. "You're distributing only to wolf settlements. This causes famine before winter. Wolves require more calories." "I understand biology." Alara cut Rena off. "I also understand starving humans rebel, costing resources you can't waste. Distribute proportionally. Prevent both famine and uprising." Kale frowned at the map. "She has a point. We've already suppressed 2 revolts this month. Prevention is cheaper." Alaric studied the proposal. Through the bond, Alara felt grudging respect. "Implement it." They worked through morning, his military strategy combined with her resource knowledge. Where he saw conquered territory, she saw supply chains. Where he planned force, she maneuvered through politics. By midday, even Kale looked impressed. Breakthrough came during border defense discussion. Alaric wanted wolf warriors at every human settlement. Alara countered with mixed patrols, wolves and trusted human soldiers together. "You want us to arm humans?" Rena was incredulous. "I want you to build loyalty," Alara corrected. "A human soldier who fights beside wolves becomes invested in success. Force creates rebels. Partnership creates citizens." Alaric's eyes met hers. Through the bond, she felt his realization. She wasn't just protecting her people. She was teaching him how to rule them. "We'll pilot the program in 3 provinces," he decided. "Kyle, coordinate with the Queen." The use of her title, spoken with respect, silenced the room. That evening, Alara worked in her new study, connecting to Alaric's chambers. He'd moved her belongings that morning, a wolf's possessive claim. She was reviewing manifests when raised voices erupted outside. Through the bond, Alaric's alarm hit her before the door burst open. A human servant stumbled in, blood pouring from his side. Behind him, 3 assassins in servants' clothing. "For free, Aurelia!" one shouted, lunging with blade aimed at her heart. Training took over. Alara grabbed the heavy candlestick and blocked. Impact jarred her arm painfully, but she deflected the strike. The second assassin moved. Alaric exploded through the connecting door in partial shift. His clawed hand caught the second assassin's throat. The neck snapped. The third hesitated. Fatal. Kale and guards poured in, subduing him. But the first assassin recovered. As Alaric dealt with threats, the man raised his crossbow, aimed at Alaric's exposed back. Alara didn't think. She threw herself forward, shoving Alaric aside. The bolt meant for his heart caught her shoulder, spinning her with impact force. Pain blinded her. She heard Alaric's roar, pure, primal rage shaking palace walls. Through their bond, his terror and fury crashed over her. Then she was in his arms, his hands frantically examining the wound. "Healer, now." "I'm all right," Alara gasped. "The bolt missed anything vital." "You threw yourself in front of a crossbow." Alaric's hands shook. "You could have been killed." "So could you. You're the king. I'm just—" "You're my mate." The words were torn from him, raw and desperate. Mine to protect, not the other way around. Healers arrived, rushing her to their wing. Alaric refused to leave, even as they removed the poisoned bolt. He held her hand through the worst, his other hand gripping the table hard enough to splinter wood. When she finally slept, sedated, Alaric stayed. Kale found him hours later, still sitting vigil. "The assassins were human resistance," Kale reported quietly. "They planned to kill you both." "They're fools," Alaric said hollowly. "She's the only thing keeping me from raising every resistant settlement." "She's changing you," Kale observed. "I know." Alaric's hand tightened on hers. "That terrifies half my pack." "It should." Kyle moved to the window. "Ragnar's been sending emissaries, gathering support among traditional packs. They say you've been weakened by your human mate." "Ragnar?" Alaric's voice went cold. "He's been looking for excuse to challenge me for years. He has one now. He's declaring formal challenge. 3 moons from now, under full moon. Many wolves will support him." When Alara woke near dawn, Alaric was still there. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion and vulnerability she'd never seen. "You stayed," she whispered. "Always." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "What you did was necessary." She struggled to sit, and he helped. "We're bound now. Truly bound. When you're threatened, my instinct is to protect you." "It makes no sense. You're not a warrior." "I'm your mate. That makes me exactly what I need to be." She touched his face, feeling the scruff. "We protect each other now." Through the bond, she felt his walls crumbling. This brutal wolf king was learning vulnerability, caring about someone more than his own survival. "Ragnar is coming," he said quietly. "And he's not wrong about one thing. You have changed me." "Is that weakness?" Alara asked. Alaric was quiet. Finally, "I don't know yet." Ragnar Ironjaw arrived with 50 warriors, formal challenge sealed with blood. He was massive, nearly 7 feet, scars covering his arms, reputation for brutal efficiency. Alara watched from the balcony as his procession entered. Through the bond, she felt Alaric's cold rage. "He wants single combat," Alaric said, reading the document. "Traditional alpha fight. To the death." "That's barbaric," Alara protested. "That's wolf law." Kale's expression was grim. "If the king refuses, he forfeits territory and pack leadership." "There has to be another way." "This is the legal challenge." Alaric cut her off without heat. "Might makes right. Ragnar's within his rights." "Because of me." "Because he's ambitious." Alaric's hand found her waist. "But yes, our bond gives him justification." Over the next days, Alara researched obsessively. If she couldn't fight Ragnar, she could find another weapon. Hours in archives, interviewing elderly wolves, piecing together history. What she found was damning. "Ragnar's been poisoning relations for years," she told Alaric 3 nights before the challenge. She spread documents, intercepted letters, financial records, testimonies. He's funded human rebels, supplied weapons, orchestrated attacks on wolf settlements and blamed humans. Alaric studied the evidence, expression darkening, creating conflict to justify his stance. "Exactly. He needs you to fail. needs this union to fail, because if we succeed... Alara traced connections. His entire philosophy crumbles. This doesn't change the challenge, Kale said. Combat is legally required. Alara slammed the table, then changed the law. I can't, not without looking weak. So you'll fight him. Alara felt fear spike, his fear carefully hidden. And if he wins... He won't. He might. Alaric, he's been preparing for years. I know. His hand covered hers, which is why you need to prepare for the worst. If I fall... No, a command. We'll use both approaches. You'll fight, but I'll handle politics. I'll expose his conspiracy publicly before combat. Force his supporters to question loyalty. That's manipulative, Kyle said with approval. Unwolf-like. Good thing I'm human then. Alara met Alaric's gaze. Trust me. Trust my way of fighting. The argument that followed was explosive. Alaric wanted to face Ragnar through pure strength, the traditional way. Alara insisted tradition was what Ragnar counted on. You're asking me to look weak. Alaric's voice rose. I'm asking you to look smart. Your strength is obvious, but showing you can outthink enemies, that's true power. In your world, maybe. In mine? Your world and mine are the same now. The bond flared. We're bound, Alaric. My thinking has value too. Or do you only want a mate when she's submitting in your bed? The blow hit its mark. Alaric went still. That's not fair, he said quietly. None of this is fair. Alara's anger drained. But we must use every advantage. Your strength and my strategy. Together. After long silence, Alaric pulled her close. Do what you need, but understand, if this goes wrong, if Ragnar wins, he'll kill you next. Then don't lose. That night, lying tangled, Alara felt strange. The bond had been stable, but something was different. A new flutter, foreign and familiar. Alaric, she whispered. Something's wrong. He was instantly alert. Are you ill? No, it's not pain, it's... She pressed a hand to her stomach. Get the healer. The elderly healer examined her and went very still. When she looked up, her ancient eyes were wide. Impossible, she breathed. What? Alaric demanded. She's with child. About 3 weeks along. The room went silent. Alaric's shock crashed through the bond like a tidal wave. That's impossible, he echoed. Humans and wolves can't... Apparently, you can. The healer's hands trembled. This has never been documented. A hybrid child. Half human, half wolf. Alara's hand instinctively covered her stomach. Through the bond, she felt Alaric's emotions. Shock, fear, wonder, fierce protective instinct. The challenge, Kale said quietly. Ragnar will use this. An abomination. Proof you're unfit. Let him try. Alaric's voice was steel. His hand covered Alara's, both cradling the impossible life. This child is proof our species can unite. Or proof you've violated natural order, Rena said from the doorway. She'd been listening. The Pax won't accept this. They'll have no choice. Alaric turned to Alara, transformation in his eyes. This was no longer just about their bond. This was about their child's future. We can't tell anyone yet, Alara said, strategic mind clicking despite shock. Not until after the challenge. Ragnar would use it. Agreed. Alaric's hand tightened. But after I defeat him, this child becomes our greatest symbol. proof wolves and humans can build a future together. Through their bond, Alara felt his determination harden. He would win. He had to. Not just for kingdom or pride, but for the impossible child that would bridge their worlds. As Alara drifted to sleep, Alaric's hand still rested protectively over her stomach. The Wolf King who'd conquered through brutality was learning different strength, the fierce protectiveness of a father willing to fight the world for his family. The challenge was in 2 days. Everything had changed. News of the pregnancy was impossible to contain. Within days, whispers spread like wildfire. Alara felt reactions through enhanced senses: shock, disgust, wonder, fear. The mate bond allowed her to perceive emotional undercurrents. In the archives, she found the prophecy, carved into ancient stone, written in Old Wolf, a language few read. She'd been searching for precedent when she stumbled across it. When moon-blessed and earth-born unite, their offspring shall bridge the divide. Neither fully wolf nor wholly human, the bridge child shall walk between worlds, bearing gifts of both and weaknesses of neither. Her hands shook as she traced the symbols. Not just accident. Prophecy. Destiny. You found it. Alara spun to find the elderly healer in the doorway. I wondered if it still existed, the healer continued, moving closer. The council destroyed most copies centuries ago. They feared what it implied, that our species were never meant to remain separate. Why hide this? Because prophecy threatens power structures. If wolves and humans were always meant to unite, then centuries of territorial conflict become unnecessary. The healer's hand touched the stone. Your child represents a future many fear. Including Ragnar. Especially Ragnar. He'll arrive today for pre-challenge ceremonies. When he learns of the child... He already knows, Alara interrupted, understanding crystallizing. That's why he escalated the timeline. He needs to kill Alaric before this child is born, before it becomes a symbol. She was right. When Ragnar's party arrived, his first words were calculated poison. I hear congratulations are in order, Ragnar said, voice carrying across assembled court. A hybrid abomination grows in our king's human pet. How? Progressive. Alaric moved with inhuman speed, but Alara caught his arm. Through the bond, she projected calm, strategy, control. Congratulations indeed, Alara said clearly. Our child will represent the future. Unity of strength and wisdom combined. Your child represents destruction of bloodlines, Ragnar countered. Dilution of wolf purity with human weakness. Strange words from a wolf secretly funding human rebellions, Alara said sweetly. Tell me, Lord Ragnar, how many wolf settlements have been attacked by rebels using weapons purchased with your gold? The courtyard went silent. Ragnar's expression didn't change, but Alara felt the crowd's energy shift. Seeds of doubt taking root. Careful, little queen, Ragnar said softly. Accusations require proof. I have proof. Would you like me to present it now, or after you've been defeated? Alaric's hand found hers, squeezing. Through the bond, she felt fierce pride and fear for her safety. That evening, preparing for bed, Alaric pulled her close. His hand rested on her stomach where their child grew, too small to show but undeniably present. If I fall tomorrow, he began, you won't. But if I do? He turned her to face him. Kyle will protect you. I've given orders. You and the child will be taken south, where my sister rules. She'll shelter you. I'm not running. Alara's voice was firm. If you fall, I'll fight for this kingdom using every political tool I have. And if I can't win... Her hand covered his. Then I'll make sure our child knows we tried to build something better. Alaric kissed her, deep and desperate. Through the bond, she felt his love, unspoken but undeniable. The next morning, war horns sounded from the eastern border. Messengers arrived, dusty and frantic. "The Shadow Pack has invaded!" The lead messenger gasped. "Victor's forces are attacking settlements, slaughtering everyone. Wolves and humans both." Kyle looked up from maps, face grim. "This is coordinated. Ragnar issues challenge, and suddenly invasion? They're working together." Alaric's expression went cold. "Victor wants to strike while we're divided. He's betting on Ragnar winning." "You have to go," Alara said, though every instinct screamed against it. "The settlements need defending." "The challenge is tomorrow. Postpone it. Ragnar won't refuse without looking craven." Alara's mind raced through implications. If he insists on fighting while your people are being slaughtered, he loses support. If he agrees to postpone, we buy time to expose his conspiracy. Alaric looked at her, feeling his conflict through the bond. Leave her pregnant and vulnerable, or abandon his people? "Go," she said firmly. "I'll hold the capital. I've studied wolf structures for months. I can manage council in your absence." "You're asking me to trust you with my kingdom." Wonder in his voice that he was considering it. "I'm asking you to trust your mate." By noon, Alaric was riding east with his fastest warriors. By nightfall, Alara stood alone in the council chamber, facing wolves who barely respected her authority. Through the bond, she felt Alaric's worry stretching across miles. But she felt something else, his growing belief in her strength. She was the human queen of a wolf kingdom, carrying an impossible child, facing enemies from all sides. And she would not break. The mate bond stretched taut with distance. Alara could feel Alaric fighting, surge of battle rage, sharp pain of wounds, fierce determination. Sometimes sensations were so intense she had to grip the council table to stay upright. Eastern reports show Victor's forces larger than anticipated, Kale said, studying maps. At least 300 warriors. Alara forced focus despite phantom pain of a blade cut. Alaric's injury, not hers. What about supply lines? Can we maintain support for both fronts? If we strip southern garrisons? No. Alara marked positions. That's what they want. Instead, activate the human militia units we've been training. Station them at secondary positions, freeing wolf warriors for offense. Rena leaned forward. Human militias won't hold against professional wolves. They don't have to hold, they have to delay and signal. Alara pulled out detailed plans. We establish warning networks. If Victor flanks, human scouts alert main forces faster. They know this terrain better. Kale studied her strategy. That could work? It will work. Trust the system we've been building. They worked through the night, Alara coordinating defense while managing constant distraction of battle raging in her mind through the bond. She experienced Alaric's combat in fragments. Weight of blade, scent of blood, split-second tactical decisions. When dawn broke on the third day, the capital seemed secure. Too secure. Alara felt it before anyone. A wrongness in emotional atmosphere. Her enhanced senses picked up conspiracy like blood on wind. "Kale," she said quietly during morning briefing. "We have traitors in the palace. What makes you—" "I can feel it, smell it. The bond has changed me. Made me more wolf." Kyle didn't dismiss her concern. "Where?" "Western Wing, Royal Guard Quarters." She closed her eyes, following the thread. At least a dozen wolves. They're waiting. They were waiting for nightfall. The coup attempt came swift and coordinated. Ragnar's sympathizers, wolves who saw Alara's pregnancy as abomination, struck at the changing of the guard. They moved through the palace like smoke, aiming for one target: the human queen carrying a hybrid child. But Alara had prepared. The lower-ranking wolves she'd befriended, those who'd benefited from her reforms, fought back. Battle raged through ornate corridors. Alara, protected by loyalists, coordinated defense from the throne room. She couldn't fight with claws, but she could outthink them. "They're trying to cut off the eastern wing," she called out, watching movements through reports and bond-enhanced senses. "Redirect 3rd Unit to block their retreat. Force them toward the main courtyard." The strategy worked. Traitors found themselves surrounded, caught between loyal wolves and human militia units. When fighting ended, the throne room floor was slick with blood, but the coup had failed. Miles away, Alaric felt her terror spike and nearly abandoned the eastern battle. Through their bond, she projected clearly. "Stay. I'm safe. Win your war." His relief and pride crashed through her. Over the next week, Alara proved herself in ways that transcended combat. She negotiated with merchant guilds to fast-track supplies. She coordinated between wolf tactical units and human intelligence networks. She held audiences with frightened citizens, both species, and projected calm authority. At night, she dream-walked with Alaric through their bond. They couldn't speak, but they could share feelings, strategies, reassurance. His wolf would curl around her consciousness, protective even in sleep. "The Eastern Front is stabilizing," Kale reported on the 8th day. "But there's new intelligence. Disturbing." "Tell me." "Victor's forces have been raiding villages along the border. Not just attacking, kidnapping, at least 50 hostages, including children." Alara's hand moved to her stomach. "Their demands?" "They want you." Kale's expression was grim. "They're demanding the queen surrender herself for the hostages." "Absolutely not," came several voices simultaneously. "It's obviously a trap," Rena added. "The moment you're in their hands, they'll kill you and the child." Alara was already pulling on a travel cloak. "Send word to Alaric that I'm coming." "He'll forbid it." "He can try. But those hostages include women and children from Millbrook, my childhood home. I won't abandon them." Through the bond, she felt Alaric's immediate, violent refusal, even before he received the message. His rage and fear burned through their connection. But she was already riding, a small guard struggling to keep pace. Being queen wasn't about always being safe. Sometimes it meant making the dangerous choice because no one else could. As her horse pounded across war-torn landscape, Alara felt her child quicken. The first true movement. Impossible life, defying every natural law. She pressed a hand to her stomach. "Hold on, little one. We're going to save your father." Because through the bond, she'd realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about hostages. Victor and Ragnar had coordinated their true strategy. They were going to force Alaric to choose, rescue his mate, or save his kingdom. And Alara intended to make sure he never had to make that choice. The ride east was brutal. Alara's small contingent pushed their horses to breaking point, covering in 3 days what should have taken 5. Every mile brought her closer to Alaric. She could feel him through the bond, his consciousness like a beacon. When they reached war camp, Alaric was waiting at the perimeter. The moment she dismounted, he was there, hands gripping her shoulders. "What were you thinking?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Riding through war territory while pregnant." "I was thinking 50 innocent people are being used as pawns." Alara met his fierce gaze, including families I've known since childhood. And now Victor has what he wants, you within striking distance. Alaric pulled her close despite anger. Through the bond, she felt his terror warring with respect for her courage. Kale approached with intelligence. Victor's forces are positioned 3 miles north. Hostages are held in an abandoned fortress. Formal terms: the queen exchanges herself by tomorrow's sunset, or he starts executing them. It's a trap designed to break you, Alara said. Victor knows you'll either risk everything to save me, weakening your forces, or sacrifice civilians, destroying your moral authority. There's a third option, Alaric growled. I kill Victor and every wolf beside him. Which is what he expects. His forces are positioned to ambush direct assault. Alara moved to the war table, studying maps. But he's not expecting me to actually surrender. Absolutely not. Listen, Victor's using hostages as bait, but he's also spread forces thin to guard them. If I surrender, I can get inside, assess their strength, find vulnerabilities. While pregnant? Are you insane? I'm strategic. Her eyes met his. You've been teaching me to think like a wolf. Let me show you how humans fight, through deception. The argument that followed was explosive. Alaric refused, commanded, finally pleaded. But Alara stood firm. Through their bond, she projected not just determination, but deeper truth. She trusted him to come for her, to coordinate rescue while she undermined Victor from within. You'll have to trust me, she said finally. Trust that I can handle myself. Trust that our bond will guide you when the time comes. Alaric's control was fracturing. She could feel his wolf clawing at restraint, every instinct screaming to lock her away, protect his pregnant mate. This is what partnership means, Alara continued softly. You don't control me. You trust me. The silence stretched. Finally, Alaric spoke, voice rough. 3 hours. You have 3 hours inside before we attack, whether you've signaled or not. That night, as Alara prepared, Alaric pulled her aside. In the privacy of his command tent, his hands cradled her face. If anything happens... It won't. She covered his hands. I've studied pack dynamics for months. I know how to read dominant structures, find weak links. Victor's wolves aren't all loyal. I can feel it. They made love with desperate intensity, the bond blazing. Afterward, Alaric held her close, hand protective over her stomach. Come back to me, he whispered. Always. The surrender was conducted at dawn. Alara rode alone to the designated point, wearing simple dress that emphasized her humanity, her vulnerability. Victor's second met her with warriors. The human queen, so eager to die. The wolf's smile was cruel. Victor will be pleased. They bound her hands. She didn't resist. As they led her into the fortress, Alara's enhanced senses cataloged everything. Guard positions, emotional states, undercurrent of unease among Victor's supposedly loyal warriors. Victor himself was impressive. Massive, with scarred face and cunning intelligence. He circled her slowly in the main hall where hostages huddled in terror. So this is the famous hybrid bearer. His voice carried mock admiration. Tell me, does your wolf king know you're carrying an abomination? My husband knows our child will unite 2 species. Alara kept her voice steady. Does Ragnar know you're using his challenge as cover for your own territorial ambitions? Victor's eyes narrowed. Clever little human. But cleverness won't save you. Over the next hours, Alara did what she did best. She talked. To Victor directly, spinning out meaningless negotiations that bought time. To his guards, asking about families, planting seeds of doubt. To hostages, offering quiet reassurance and instructions. She felt some of Victor's wolves wavering. These weren't ideologues. They were mercenaries who'd followed Victor for promised territory. The sight of a pregnant queen negotiating calmly, showing no fear, treating them with respect. It confused them. "You're wasting your time," Victor said when he caught her speaking with a guard. "My wolves are loyal." "Are they?" Alara asked. "Or are they pragmatic? You promised conquered territory, but Alaric's forces have been winning. You promised a weak king, but I've strengthened his position." She was playing a dangerous game, but through the bond, she felt Alaric approaching. His consciousness burned bright, drawing closer. "You really think you can turn my own wolves?" Victor laughed. "I think your wolves are smart enough to recognize a losing strategy." Alara met his gaze. "The question is whether you're smart enough." That's when everything went wrong. Ragnar arrived with his own forces. Early, unexpected, violating his agreement with Victor. The alliance between them was fracturing, both wolves too dominant to share power. "I told you to wait," Victor snarled. "And miss the chance to kill the hybrid bearer myself?" Ragnar's smile was vicious. "This abomination ends now." The fortress erupted into chaos. Ragnar and Victor's forces clashed, their alliance dissolving into violence. Hostages screamed, and Alara found herself in the center, hands still bound, pregnant body vulnerable. Through the bond, Alaric's rage exploded. She felt him coming, felt his absolute terror and fury. But she also felt opportunity. "Now!" she shouted to hostages. She'd been planning this, whispering instructions. "Run for the eastern exit." Several of Victor's guards, the ones she'd been working on, moved to protect fleeing civilians. Not many, but enough to create confusion. In the chaos, Alara grabbed a fallen blade and cut her bindings. She wasn't a warrior, but she'd learned enough to defend herself. When a wolf lunged, she dodged with borrowed instinct, muscle memory flowing through the mate bond. Then Alaric crashed through the fortress walls. He was fully shifted, a massive black wolf that seemed to absorb light. His focus was singular: reach his mate. Wolves who tried to stop him were torn apart with brutal efficiency. Kale and royal forces poured in behind. The battle became churning nightmare of violence. Alara pressed against the wall, protecting her stomach, watching her husband fight with savagery that should have terrified her. Instead, she felt awe. This was Alaric unrestrained. Ragnar saw his opportunity. While Alaric was distracted, Ragnar lunged, not at Alaric, but at Alara. Alara screamed warning through the bond. Alaric turned mid-fight, impossibly fast. He intercepted Ragnar's attack, the two massive wolves colliding with bone-shattering force. They rolled, tearing at each other with savage intensity. But Alaric was fighting for more than dominance. He was fighting for his mate, his child, his future. When the killing bite came, it was swift and precise. Ragnar collapsed, grievously wounded. Alaric's jaws remained at his throat. Yield. Alaric's voice was barely human. Or die. Ragnar, bleeding and beaten, finally submitted. But in the chaos, Victor escaped with several loyalists. His parting words echoed, "This isn't over, Blackfang. I'll return. And next time, I'll take everything, starting with your human whore and her abomination." When battle ended, Alaric shifted back and went directly to Alara. His hands ran over her body, checking for injuries, eyes wild with lingering battle fury. I'm all right, she assured him, though shaking. The baby's fine. I'm fine. He pulled her against him, entire body trembling. Through the bond, his emotions crashed over her. Relief, rage, love, terror, pride, fury tangled together. Never again, he said against her hair. Never put yourself at risk like that again. But they both knew she would, because that's what queens did, what partners did, what mates did. The journey back to the capital was tense. Alaric barely let Alara out of his sight, riding beside her carriage, presence overwhelming and protective. Through the bond, she felt his struggle, the war between respect for her courage and desperate need to keep her safe. When they finally reached the palace, the argument erupted. You deliberately disobeyed. I'm not one of your soldiers to be commanded. Alara cut him off. They were in their private chambers, finally alone. I'm your queen, your partner, not your possession. You're my pregnant mate who threw herself into enemy territory. Alaric's voice rose. Do you know what it felt like through the bond? Feeling your fear, sensing danger unable to reach you? Yes, because I feel it every time you ride into battle. Every time you take a wound, I experience it too, but I don't try to lock you away. The accusation hung between them. Alaric's jaw clenched. It's different, he said weakly. Why? Because you're a warrior, and I'm just a human? Alara stepped closer, eyes blazing. I fought my way into power using the only weapons I have, intelligence and strategy. You don't get to respect my mind in council, but dismiss it when it puts me at risk. You could have been killed. Our child could have been killed. So could you, every single day. Alara's voice broke slightly. Do you think I don't feel terror every time you shift? But I can't. I won't. Let that fear control either of us. Alaric turned away, shoulders rigid. Through the bond, Alara felt the depths of his struggle. This wasn't about control. It was about terror so profound it threatened to consume him. I've lost everything before, he said quietly. My father, my first pack leader, half my warriors. But losing you would destroy me in ways I can't. His voice broke. I can't survive losing you, Alara. And that terrifies me more than any enemy. The admission shattered Alara's anger. She crossed the room, hands framing his face. I'm terrified too, she confessed. Every moment you're in battle, I feel like I'm drowning. But this is what we signed up for. We're not just mates, we're rulers. Sometimes that means being brave when everything screams to hide. Alaric's forehead pressed against hers. I don't know how to not protect you. Then protect me by trusting me. By believing I'm strong enough to stand beside you. Not behind you. The shift happened gradually. Alaric didn't stop being protective. That was wired into his wolf nature. But he began to trust Alara's judgment, to see her risks as calculated strategies. They restructured the monarchy formally. No longer would the queen be symbolic. They created true dual rule. Alaric commanding military and pack law, Alara overseeing civil governance and interspecies relations. The council chamber was redesigned with 2 thrones of equal height. When they held court, they sat side by side, consulting openly. Wolves who dismissed Alara began to see her not as weakness, but as complement. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Alaric's hand rested on Alara's visible belly. Their child kicked against his palm, and wonder crossed his features. I never imagined this, he said softly. A mate, a child, a partnership where I don't carry everything alone. That's what surrender means, Alara murmured. Not giving up, but giving in to trusting someone else. He kissed her, gentle and deep. The mate bond hummed, no longer a source of conflict, but a bridge of shared strength. The peace lasted 3 weeks. News arrived. Ragnar, humiliated and stripped of territories, had allied with the southern human kingdoms. Monarchs who feared wolf expansion had found their champion. A combined human-wolf army was marching north, the largest force either species had assembled in a century. "They're coming for everything," Kale said, studying reports. "This isn't about territory. It's about proving human-wolf unity is impossible." Alara's hand moved to her stomach, where 6-month pregnancy was now obvious. Their child, the living symbol of unity, had become the ultimate target. "Then we show them they're wrong," Alaric said. His hand found Alara's, fingers intertwining. Together. The War Council was somber. Maps showed enemy forces converging from 2 directions: Ragnar's wolves from northeast, southern kingdoms from south. 6 weeks before collision. Maybe less. "We can't fight on 2 fronts," Kale said bluntly. "Then we don't fight." Alara studied maps with strategic focus. "We build alliances." She proposed splitting their approach. Alaric would command defensive operations. Meanwhile, Alara would travel to neutral human kingdoms, those who hadn't yet committed. "You want to undertake diplomatic mission while 7 months pregnant?" "I want to save our kingdom using the skills I have." Alara met his gaze. "You can't convince human monarchs. They see you as conqueror, threat, but I'm human, one of them, and I'm carrying proof our species can build a future together." The bond pulsed with his conflict. Fear for her safety, respect for strategy, trust warring with instinct. "Kale goes with you," Alaric said finally, "and full guard. Any sign of danger, you return immediately." Agreed. Their parting 3 days later was wrenching. The pregnancy made their mate bond separation physically painful, a constant ache growing worse with distance. As Alara's carriage pulled away, she felt Alaric's consciousness like a pulled muscle, stretching but not breaking. Through the bond, they maintained connection. At night, they dream-walked, sharing thoughts and sensations. Alara felt his battles, strategic positioning, brutal efficiency. Alaric felt her negotiations, the careful dance of diplomacy, slow building of trust. Alara's mission was revelation. In courts of 3 neutral kingdoms, she presented not just political arguments, but lived proof. She was queen of a conquered kingdom who now ruled alongside her conqueror. She spoke of reforms, shared governance, a child who would bridge worlds. "You fear wolves as monsters," she told King Edmund. "I married one, and I learned wolves value loyalty, honor, family above all. They're not so different." "But they're stronger," Edmund protested. "And we can build, create, innovate." Alara placed his hand on her pregnant belly, let him feel the impossible child kick. Imagine combining those strengths instead of fighting. One by one, she won them over. Not all, but enough. 3 kingdoms pledged support. Meanwhile, Alaric was learning from her influence. When enemy villages surrendered, he didn't sack them. He offered the terms Alara had championed: protection for loyalty, integration instead of subjugation. Through the bond, Alara felt his transformation, winning not just through brutal efficiency, but through showing wolf rule could be just, becoming the king their child would need. But the separation was taking its toll. By 8 months pregnant, Alara's body was struggling with the bond stretched across hundreds of miles. She experienced phantom pains, dizziness, moments where Alaric's battles bled into her consciousness so intensely she couldn't separate his experiences from hers. "We need to return," Kale said gently after finding her collapsed one morning. The child is coming soon, and bond separation is too dangerous. Alara agreed. They'd accomplished their mission. Time to reunite. The journey north took 2 weeks. Each day through the bond, Alara felt enemy armies drawing closer. Ragnar's forces had linked with southern kingdoms. The final battle was inevitable. When she finally saw Alaric's war camp on the horizon, relief crashed through her. And then labor pains began. "No!" she gasped, gripping the carriage wall. "Not yet! Not now!" But her body had other plans. The stress of travel, bond separation, approaching due date, all conspired to trigger early labor. Through the bond, Alaric felt her pain and terror. He was at the carriage before it stopped, pulling her into his arms. "The baby's coming," she gasped. "Now?" He looked at the battlefield stretched before them, enemy forces visible on the horizon. War they'd been preparing for was mere hours away. "Now," she confirmed. Behind them, war drums began to sound. And in Alaric's arms, his impossible child was fighting to be born. The fortified medical tent was hastily erected behind battle lines. Healers rushed in, faces tense with the impossibility. A birth during battle. A hybrid child no one was certain would survive. Alaric refused to leave her side. "My king!" Kyle approached urgently. "The armies are positioning. You need to command." "No." Alaric's hand gripped Alara's as another contraction racked her body. "Delegate to senior commanders. I'm staying." Through their bond, Alara felt his absolute certainty. This moment, their child entering the world, mattered more than any battle. He'd spent his life prioritizing duty. Not today. "Go," Alara gasped between pains. "You need to... I need to be here. With you. With our child." His other hand pressed against her swollen belly. "The kingdom can survive without me for a few hours, but you can't." The contractions were brutal. Wolf healers had never delivered hybrid birth. They didn't know what to expect. Alara's human body was struggling with the child's enhanced wolf nature. Each wave of pain crashed through both her and Alaric via the bond, nearly driving him to his knees. Outside, battle raged. The clash of armies, screams of wounded, thunder of combat, all provided horrifying soundtrack to new life trying to emerge. "The child is in distress," the head healer said, hands glowing with diagnostic magic. "The wolf nature wants to shift, but there's no room. The human body is too constrictive." "Then what do we do?" Alaric's voice was raw with desperation. "I don't know. I've never..." The healer looked helpless. "We may lose them both." "No." Alara's voice cut through chaos. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with determination. "I refuse. We've fought too hard. This child is too important." She reached deep into the mate bond, pulling on Alaric's strength. Wolf power flowed into her, more than should be possible. Her body began to change, not shifting, but adapting. Her human physiology temporarily taking on wolf characteristics. Flexibility, healing, enhanced endurance. The eclipse began outside. Cosmic timing that legends were made from. The moon darkening, sun hidden, a moment caught between light and shadow. "Push!" the healer commanded. Alara pushed with everything. Alaric's strength, her own determination, the combined power of their impossible bond, and their daughter was born. The moment she emerged, crying lustily, a wave of energy exploded outward from the tent. Visible, tangible, undeniable. It rippled across the battlefield like a shockwave, touching every wolf and human within range. Combat stopped. Wolves mid-shift froze, experiencing sudden, overwhelming sensation of connection. Not to their own pack, but to the humans they'd been fighting. Human soldiers felt wolf emotions, loyalty, family bonds, protective instincts not so different from their own. The battlefield went silent. Inside the tent, Alaric held his daughter with shaking hands. She was impossibly beautiful, silver eyes reflecting moonlight and sunlight, tiny fingers showing neither claws nor full human nails, but something between. Her cry was melodic, neither fully human nor wolf song. "She's perfect," he whispered, wonder breaking his voice. Alara, exhausted and bleeding, reached for her child. When the infant settled against her breast, more energy pulsed out. This time, it carried clear emotional resonance, peace, unity, the promise of something better. On the battlefield, enemies looked at each other with new understanding. The artificial divide suddenly seemed arbitrary. That's when Ragnar made his move. Furious at the battle's interruption, seeing his war dissolving, he rallied his most loyal followers and charged the medical tent. If he couldn't defeat them in combat, he'd kill the symbol of their unity. He burst through tent flaps with a dozen warriors, blade raised to strike Alara where she lay vulnerable. Alaric moved to intercept, but Kale was faster. He and loyal wolves formed protective barrier, engaging Ragnar's forces. The tent became whirlwind of violence, uncomfortably close to the newborn's first moments of life. But Alara wasn't helpless. Exhausted, bleeding, holding her newborn daughter, she still had one weapon: her voice. "Ragnar," she called out, tone carrying strange authority. "Look at her. Really look." Despite himself, Ragnar's eyes flickered to the infant. The silver-eyed child stared back with impossible awareness. "She's not an abomination," Alara continued. "She's evolution, the future, and you can either be part of building that future or be destroyed by it. The only future is our species separated." "Why?" Alara interrupted. "Because that's how it's always been? That's the weakest argument in history. She exists. She lives. She breathes. Your philosophy just became obsolete." Around them, fighting slowed. Ragnar's own followers wavered, feeling the child's influence through strange energy she radiated. Pack bonds were strong, but this was different. A connection that transcended species entirely. One of Ragnar's warriors lowered his weapon. Then another. They'd come to fight for purity, for tradition, but faced with an actual hybrid child, alive, healthy, radiating almost mystical peace. Their certainty crumbled. Ragnar stood alone, his ideology collapsing. "Yield," Alaric said, blade at Ragnar's throat. "It's over." For a long moment, Ragnar stood frozen. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. Not in agreement, but in acknowledgement that he'd lost. 6 months later, the coronation ceremony combined traditions so thoroughly that participants could no longer tell which customs came from which species. Human royalty mingled with wolf pack leaders. Mixed species families filled the audience. And at center, Alaric and Alara stood together, their crowns identical in size and symbolism. Between them, in an ornate basket woven with silver and wood, their daughter Lyra slept peacefully. At 6 months old, she was already showing unique nature. She could shift partially, her eyes changing from human to wolf and back. Hands sometimes sprouting soft claws she used for climbing. Her presence seemed to calm conflicts naturally, as if she radiated the unity her existence represented. "She's already walking," Alara murmured during quiet moment. 6 months old and walking. Our healers have no idea if that's normal." "Because there's never been another hybrid," Alaric replied, wonder in his voice. He still looked at his daughter like she was a miracle he couldn't quite believe. The past 6 months had transformed the kingdom. Human-wolf marriages were becoming common. Young wolves were learning human trades. Human children played with wolf pups. It wasn't perfect. Resistance still existed. Prejudices ran deep. But change was undeniable. Ragnar had been exiled to farthest territories, stripped of rank, but alive. Mercy, not revenge. A new precedent. Victor had vanished entirely. Occasionally, reports surfaced of sightings, but he'd become more myth than threat. As the ceremony concluded, Alaric and Alara stood before their united kingdom. He spoke of strength and protection. She spoke of wisdom and unity. Their words intertwined, neither dominating, both essential. When they kissed to seal the coronation, their daughter chose that moment to wake. She didn't cry. Instead, she made a sound that was part coo, part gentle howl. The crowd laughed, tension breaking. That night, in their private chambers, Alaric watched Alara nurse their impossible daughter. The domesticity still amazed him. That he, who'd conquered through brutality, could find such peace in such simple intimacy. "What are you thinking?" Alara asked, sensing his contemplation through their ever-present bond. "That I've learned the hardest lesson." His hand covered hers, both touching their daughter. True power lies not in conquest, but in the courage to surrender to something greater than yourself. Surrender to what? To trust, to partnership, to love. He met her gaze, golden eyes soft with emotion he'd once thought impossible. "You taught me that dominance doesn't mean control, that strength can be found in vulnerability." Lyra's silver eyes opened, studying her parents with unnerving awareness. Through the bond, both parents felt her contentment. A child secure in knowledge that her parents loved each other as much as they loved her. "She'll change the world," Alara whispered. "She already has," Alaric replied. Outside their window, the full moon rose over a kingdom at peace. Wolf howls joined human songs in celebration, and in the royal chambers, the brutal conqueror who'd become devoted father, the strategic queen who'd turned war into partnership, and the impossible child who'd bridged two worlds, settled into peace none had thought possible. The future was uncertain. Challenges would come, but they would face them together. Not as conqueror and conquered, not as wolf and human, but as partners. As mates, as family. True power, they'd learned, wasn't about standing above others. It was about standing beside them.